I'm a female who was born with a complete uterine diddle fizz, which means I have 2 vajayjays. Ask me anything. I'm in my 20s. I found out I had 2 uteri, 2 cervices, and 2 vajayjays when I was 16 years old. I've been told I can get pregnant in either uterus. Maybe you are confused. Does poop ever come out of your smaller vajayjay? You're hilarious, asshole lol. As someone with 2 Venuses, we should date. This relationship would be perfect. I feel bad for any guy you've taken the virginity of, because the next time he hooks up with a girl his first question will be, where's your other vajayjay? What are guys' reactions when they find out you have 2 vajayjays? Disbelief lol, which makes it fun to talk about. This is just cruel. Men are finally educated enough to find your clitoris and now you go and split the road in 2 directions. The whole thing is starting to sound like a jab at the male aversion for asking for directions. So could you potentially get pregnant, then a month later get pregnant again? Due to hormones, that isn't supposed to happen, but I've read that it's happened before. Apparently a woman had 1 in one uterus and twins in the other uterus. Oh god, that sounds awful. So the obvious question, how's your sex life? My sex life is good. It depends which vajayjay is penetrated. My vajayjays are side by side and the left side hurts when penetrated because it is smaller. To my knowledge, due to the septum in my vajayjay, my G-spot is covered. Other than that, I imagine that it's not much different than anyone else's. So do you essentially have a normal, as in you have to labia majora, vulva externally but internally it's got a septum down the middle dividing it? Glad to hear it's all shipshape and in working order for you though. There is a septum. It's separated about an inch into my vajayjay. Does that make sense? Thank you though. So basically, accidentally putting it in the wrong hole is much more applicable to your situation than any other? Yep. So you're equipped for big guys and small guys? Useful. How do your menstrual cycles work? Do you get 2 at a time, or are there different times? I have 2 fallopian tubes, 1 connected to each uterus. I menstruate once a month. So does that mean you could get pregnant twice by 2 guys? If it was the same night, I suppose. Once I get pregnant in one vajayjay, my periods will stop altogether because of my hormones. What does your SO think of it? He was shocked at first, but he doesn't notice it when we have sex. So, is it safe to say you have a bird in the hand? How do you react when you first learned about it? I cried. I was unhappy when I learned I had 2 vajayjays, till I met a woman who had none. How did you find out about it? When I was 13 years old I had to have surgery on my intestines. When I got out of surgery, my parents were told to take me to an obstetrician when I was 16 because something is wrong with the reproductive system. My obstetrician did a vajayjay exam and told me I had a double vajayjay and 2 cervices, and we decided to do an exploratory laparoscopy. Are you able to use tampons/diva cups at all, or do you have to use pads or something external? Would there ever be a way to surgically correct the issue and turn it into 1 vajayjay? My doc says I should use 2 tampons at one time, but that's a bit ridiculous, so I just use 1. I can choose to get the septum removed, but scar tissue may form. I would have to put a mold in my vajayjay twice a day for 15 minutes at a time, and I would have to do that for 6 months. Given that the 2 vajayjays need to fit within the same amount of space, would childbirth be more difficult for you? Would you require a C-section for birth, or is it possible for you to do a natural birth without complications? C-section. My uteri are smaller than normal, so I'm at risk for miscarriage, intrauterine growth restriction, small babies, and premature babies. Does the fact that you have 2 vajayjays affect the way you orgasm? To my knowledge, my G-spot is covered by the septum, so I can only have clitoral orgasms and cervical orgasms that I know of. Today I learned cervical orgasms are a thing. There's a minimum height requirement for that ride. Sorry. Does it matter to you which of your 2 vajayjays you have sex with? We aim for the right vajayjay. His right, or your right. Unless it's doggy style, which would make it both of your rights. And you know that you gotta fight for your right to party. So, masturbation. Can you explain what that is like with 2 vajayjays? Not much different. I just get to choose which vajayjay. Do you have to clits? No. What is the best and worst thing with having two vajayjays? I guess the worst thing is sex can be uncomfortable because the left side is small. I guess the best thing is it makes a good conversation. Other than that, there really isn't anything that makes it all that exciting. Have you ever been with a guy who wasn't up to the standard of the right one and suggested he try the left? Had a right tell me so to aim for the right side? What would happen if you were pregnant in both uteri at the same time? It's possible, but it would be two different sperm, so they wouldn't be considered twins. Do you ever get bullied about this? No, I never have. I've only had ridiculous questions, but it doesn't bother me. So, technically you lost your virginity twice, I suppose. I read a story before about a woman who also had two vajayjays, and there was a porn company offering her $1 million for a scene. Would you entertain such an offer? If so, what would you do with the money? $1 million would be nice, but I honestly don't think I could do it. It's too awkward for me. I could do some pretty awkward things for $1 million. You ever had a guy accidentally hit your septum? Like, dead on, so that it doesn't end up going to the left or right and pokes really hard directly on the membrane between the two? Sorry if I just made you cringe, but I had to ask. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to get past the septum. We have to go at an angle lol. On job applications and whatnot, under the tell us something unique about yourself. Do you take advantage of that one? No, I usually say I've had 18 surgeries. That gets their attention. How do you tell guys? I imagine after having done it a few times, you've developed a sort of routine. Well, telling them isn't the problem. It's making them believe me that's the hardest part. But, I've only had one sex partner, and it took some time for him to understand lol. When you get your period, how do you know which uterus it's coming out of? Can you use tampons? Do you have to figure out which vajayjay to put it in? Do you get more than one period a month? Or do both of your uteri, cycle at the same time? I can't tell which side I'm menstruating from. I use tampons. I put the tampon in and hope for the best pretty much. I'm on because, so I only have one period a month. My uteri take turns each month. You should have a bet to what uterus gets the baby when you are ready. Yeah, that would be an interesting bet. My doc told me when I'm ready to get pregnant to try and get pregnant in the left uterus because it is bigger, but my left vajayjay is small, so that will be a painful time for me. So when you decide to start a family, are you just gonna go for twins because you can? If I was promised that they would be healthy, then sure, it runs in my family, but I may adopt. I would think that guys would find this super hot. True. Edit, because I'm a guy and I think it's pretty hot. A lot of guys think that lol. Would you get more pleasure from penetration of both vajayjays at the same time, that is a threesome, than just having sex with one vajayjay? Never tried it. Can you masturbate and orgasm with both vajayjays at the same time? And if so, is it twice as good? It would take a lot of work. I've never experienced before. I can orgasm from both, but I've never orgasmed at the same time. How the hell was this verified? The mods were not treated to pictures of my vajayjays, so don't feel left out. Just a little bit of documentation.